Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Board of Education meeting. A few housekeeping items first. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice and to attend the meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the school districts of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the time, date, place thereof posted in the board administrative offices, sent to the Chatham clerks of the borough, the township, the library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, the Star Ledger, and the Independent Press. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind doing roll call?
Sure. Mr. Gildo. Here. Mr. Belvin. Ms. Clark. Here. Mr. Connors. Ms. Cronin. Here. Mr. Brands. Yep. Ms. Kenny. Here. Mr. Nonmaker. Ms. Weber.
Yes, here.
President of the county.
Thank you very much. Would everybody join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
It is behind you.
Thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I do not have any opening comments this evening, so we'll get right to Dr. LaSousa's superintendent report.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I have two items. The first is just an update on Park and that administration, and if you have any detailed questions, Ms. Chase can answer them, but we are, approaching the end of the month of March, so we've got just about all of our testing under our belts. We're still doing some makeup tests, and the high school is still giving the mathematics portion of the exam. In terms of the refusal rate, we know definitively that the district will not hit the 95% benchmark at this point. At the high school, we pretty much range from about 24% of a given class who has refused to up to 41 or 42% in the junior class. So those numbers pretty much mean that overall the district won't reach the rate that has been required to this point. So we'll wait for the DOE to give us guidance about what that means and about how they're going to assess the validity of these tests, since many other high schools are in the same boat as we are and many other districts are in the same boat as we are, and we'll go from there. We have very few kids who have refused to take the tests in 3rd and 4th grade, but as you go up the ladder, the rate of refusal essentially grows. So I just wanted to provide you with that update. I don't know if Ms. Chase has anything to add to that. Didn't know if any board members had any.
And the next round is May?
The next round is definitely May. I don't know if part of the window sneaks into April. I can't remember at the top of my head.
Oh, I didn't think any of it snuck into April. I could be dead wrong. After the break?
April 27th to May 22nd.
Okay.
During that window.
Okay, so after our break. Does anybody else have any questions on Dr. LaSousa's report?
Well, I was just curious in terms of, are we as a district allowed to have stricter standards in terms of asking for the parents to, right now the students are, some of the students are deciding on their own to refuse to participate. Is there any way that we would be able to have parents, be more involved in that decision-making process, or is that not feasible?
That's a good question. The reality is kids have always been able to refuse to test. And on occasion over the years, we've had one or two kids who, they'll just put their head down during testing because they don't feel like dealing with the test in front of them. But of course, at the high school level in particular, the previous test was a graduation requirement. So we had very little of that ever occur. This year, I sent a letter to try to encourage parents to have talks with their kids and make sure they were on the same page before testing day. I know Mr. Groh sent a couple of emails out to parents as the testing was unfolding, urging the same thing. And even so, I know he sent an email out last week just to reiterate the importance of doing that for the students who had been refusing. The email went to their parents, and some parents did in fact say, I didn't realize that. I want my kid to take the rest of the test or do the makeup. So short of just constantly asking, there's not much we can do. If a kid sits there, just like any day in school, if a kid refuses to do any work or take notes or sit for the quiz, there's no penalty. During the school year, the penalty is you get a 0 on whatever thing you're refusing. Since this test is not a graduation requirement, there's really no penalty to the individual student.
And do we know what would happen if they participated in one section, like in March, but then not, and chose to participate in May or vice versa?
Well, the two park assessments are averaged together.
Do we know what will happen if they chose to participate in one section but not the other section?
The park is actually comprised of 2 parts, so those scores are averaged together to produce one final rating, so we don't think that the student would get a complete score. It may produce some information on those individual components that were taken, but we don't know at this point. But they won't get a cumulative score based on those 2 parts.
In terms of the high school, since we have flexibility in scheduling, are we able to try to work as far away from AP exams as we can to facilitate students at the high school participating without impacting that?
We are trying to work on that. Actually, after the high school completes the administration, I'm going to be sitting with the assistant principal, Doug Walker, who's managing all of this, and talk about how we can make some changes based on the performance-based assessment experience.
Okay, because is there flexibility to have kids do makeups versus having to be blocked in on a certain week at a certain time? I know that's really taxing on the
Yeah.
school, but, if their priorities are elsewhere at that
Yes,
time.
we are sensitive to the fact that our students have other testing
Okay.
going on, and we will try to make a concession as much as possible.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good point, Michelle, because it's a bigger problem for next year, because we have our spring break the final week of April, which is in the final window of Park. So then we've got spring break and we have the AP test to contend with. So we want to get through this administration. We want to kind of see where we are. It could be that we want to give multiple sections and have a longer, testing time, similar to HESPA, as we did in years past. We need to evaluate, and I know the high schools probably borne the brunt of how time-consuming this has been, and the high school also has borne the brunt of students who just decide to blow it off because they don't feel like putting the effort in on the day of the test. So there are a lot of dynamics that have unfolded at the high school, which are difficult to manage.
Any other questions? No? Good?
The second item under my report is just acknowledgement that Marion McCarthy, principal at Milton Avenue School, announced her retirement since our last meeting. And she's been in the business for 41 years. She's been here in Chatham for about 14 and has worked in a variety of roles, has worked very closely with me and with the other administrators on our team. So I want to absolutely wish her the best and thank her for everything that she's done. This past year and a half has been a particularly exciting time at Milton Avenue School with the Blue Ribbon recognition last year. So she's kind of going out on top. And we have begun the process of securing a replacement. We advertised for the position yesterday, and the Star Ledger will do the same next week, and we'll have a process in place so that hopefully by the end of May, our target is the end of May or the first meeting in June, somewhere thereabouts, to appoint the next principal at Milton Avenue School.
Following the same process that we've done in
Exactly.
recent years? Okay. 41 years, wow, good for her. So she got her blue ribbon and she's going home now. Very
That's
nice.
it.
Good for her.
Now
Well,
it's time for Pax Blue Ribbon.
really. Does anybody else have any questions? Was that your final item, Dr. D'Souza?
Yes.
Very good. No additional questions? Mr. DeQuilla?
I have nothing to report at this time.
Okay. The furniture's being moved in and the rooms are looking great. Rooms do look great.
Yes, and the smart boards are being installed, so we're getting there.
Okay.
Keep forging ahead.
And we have a CO or a temporary CO?
Still a temporary
Oh, because
certificate
of
of
the
occupancy
outdoor
based
part.
on the outdoor
Yep,
work.
yep, I forgot,
But
sorry.
if the weather ever gets warm, we'll be able to proceed.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. DeQuilla? Nope, that's good on that. Moving on to committee reports, Ms. Kenny, we're going to start with personnel.
Personnel has not met since our last meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. Ms. Cronin, curriculum?
Yes, we met last Wednesday, and we went over park update. We talked about some reorganization structure within the district, and we also talked about the Lafayette student, parent, teacher conferences. Talked about that quite a bit, and trying to revise that to make them more useful to the students and the parents. That's it.
All right, thank you. Finance and Facilities, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes, the committee just met, went over a number of different things. One, we did look at the board meeting, committee meeting schedules for 2015 and 16 that we continue to review, looking at the overall dates. We talked about the budget approval for tonight. It's now been approved by the county office. We are at 1.77% from an operating perspective for next year's school year. We reviewed and continue to review the referendum in terms of the savings from the different bond pieces. And last but not least, we did look at a New Jersey School Board Association resolution on pension reform. We don't think it's time to assign this resolution. I think there's a lot more we need to understand in terms of what the state government is trying to do. However, from a back-of-the-envelope perspective, it's going to be something I believe that the individual school districts are going to have a hard time supporting, because it appears as though a lot of the costs are going to be pushed back onto the local districts, costs that will definitely put our operating budgets in jeopardy, for lack of a better word. So it's going to be something that I believe will be bounced around for a long time. It definitely would be a large pill to swallow. Not quite sure how this is going to move forward, but again, we'll continue to monitor that situation, and we meet again in a month.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gilfillan that wasn't in attendance at the finance meeting? Or even if you were in attendance? No? Very good. Moving on to policy and planning. Mr. Belding was not able to attend the last meeting, so I sat in for Mr. Belding on March 11th. We also discussed some preliminary calendars for the Board of Ed schedule for 15-16. We talked about a few policies. One had to do with the conduct of visitors at various sponsored events from the school district, and the conduct and some of the policies surrounding inappropriate conduct at events. We also discussed two policies that are on the agenda in the policy section for first reading, transgender students policy and also a physical education policy. Those are up for first reading, so those are part of the agenda on this particular meeting. Does anybody have any questions on any of those items? No, thank you. Moving on to liaison reports, Mr. Connors is not available, so we'll move to the township. Ms. Clark?
Nothing to report.
Very good. Athletic boosters, Mr. Connors is not here. Ms. Cronin, you didn't happen to attend?
Nope.
Neither did I, for the athletic boosters. And then I'm going to use up all of your time again. Music and theater boosters report. Again, congratulations. We had two students, one from the middle school violinist Sophie Andrews, and a Chatham High School pianist Jessica Barry, who have both been named Mayo Musicians of the Month for the Performing Arts Center in Morristown. They will be honored and recognized at a performance on March 22nd. The Festival of Music is going to start up at the end of March. It goes between March 28th and April 24th, and that's a fundraiser. We bring in groups from all over our country and Canada. They perform here, they're adjudicated, and our students help facilitate some of that. We also use some of our students, they volunteer to be translators for the French-speaking students, so it's a nice way for the students to interact, and it's a fundraiser to offset the traveling costs for the district, the Chatham High School musicians that travel, to various events. This is a very nice concert. The Chatham High School Honors Musical Recital, if you can make it, April 9th, it's a Thursday night, 7 o'clock at the high school auditorium. This is their final performance, and it's part of their grade, and it's always a great performance. I mean, top-notch musicians in the honors program at the high school. And please mark your calendars for an upcoming event. District Orchestra, the faculty will host a district-wide string fest. So I think this is the first time they've done this, but this is the grades 3 through 12 will all participate in a strings orchestra and an enrichment program. So that'll be neat to see the third graders all the way up to 12th graders performing. And the spring schedule is posted on the music department web pages, so take a look at that for the spring calendars. Chatham Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny, do you have anything?
Yes, the Chatham Education Foundation would like to thank the board for all of their support for the Taste of Chatham event. It was, sorry. Thank you, sorry. The CEF would like to thank the board for its support for the Taste of Chatham event. It was another successful fundraiser. Oops, sorry. Oops. I just do it. And they would like to thank the administration and the district staff for the continued support for all of the CEF events.
Oh, fantastic, excellent, thank you. Mr. Nonamaker is not here for recreation. Ms. Cronin, did the PTO district cabinet?
No meeting.
No meeting? Okay, very good. I'd like to make a motion to pass the minutes of the March 9th, 2015 public and private sessions. Bill steps up in John's absence. Seconded by Mr. Franz. All those in favor? Aye.
Well, can I be in favor of the public with abstaining from the private?
Do I have to do?
Was there from part?
Yes.
No, I do the same.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah, I
Okay.
Duly noted, regular session minutes passed 6-0, executive sessions passed 4-0-2.
402. That's bad.
I can count to
Not
6.
the 4. You did say 402. I was like, well, that's impressive.
We have our first opportunity for public commentary. If you wouldn't mind stepping up to the mic on this side, and if you could sign in, that would be great. And introduce yourself and where you live, please.
Good evening, Nabil Moulin, 131 Southern Boulevard, Chatham Township. Thank you everyone for the work you do for us. I have two questions. Comment for Park. I'm sure some of the feedback come back to the administration regarding some of the issues related to sessions taking place just before lunch and having in the same room kids who are taking the test and kids not taking the test, and the pressure it puts on those taking the test. There are dynamics, as I'm sure you're aware of, within classrooms that makes it a little bit difficult for those kids who are wanting to take the test, and they have the other kids who are not taking the test sitting next to them and can't wait for the time to go and take lunch and all that stuff. So I don't know if there is, those things could be taken care of one way or the other. I'm not sure how, but that's some of the feedback. You might have heard that from from PTO or from other people in the community. And two questions, if Ms. Cronin, you mentioned the restructuring for the school district, so I don't know if there is more light to that. And Mr. Gilfillan, you have mentioned the potential cost for the pension reform, and I know I heard your comments, but can you share with the public how it would look like if, for any reason, it continues to look like the way it is?
On the pension side?
Yeah.
Is that on? No. I'm on now? Okay. Well, I can't give you everything because I don't understand everything, don't have all the information on everything. However, it would go to some form of defined contribution side. And where at that point it would be from a pension, almost call it a development in terms of contributing into your pension. The numbers kind of being bantered around was that the individual, I'll use it from a teacher perspective, the individual teacher would have to put in 4%, and then the school district would have to match, and then the school district would be responsible for healthcare costs post-retirement. So right now, the school district doesn't contribute to doesn't contribute to the healthcare benefits post-retirement. So there would be two costs that we would have to take on to our operating budget. I can throw around figures for you, but it's too early to know, but just know that they're in essence doing what has been kind of historical in state government, where they're creating, in essence, unfunded mandates back to the local districts and looking for us to pay significantly more. I do know, from a simple perspective, is that they felt as though, I think we could save money through this process somehow, through alterations or reductions in healthcare payments at the existing, I shouldn't say existing, but the current budgets for healthcare and the reforms associated with that would offset this. I don't believe that versus historical experience. So we need to see where this goes, but it could negatively either do two things: impact our ability to run from an operating perspective, or two, have to ask for a significant tax increase that really doesn't go to the children, but more to benefit costs.
Just on the other two items, Mr. Moulin, the restructuring, just we've had a resignation and also a retirement in the administrative team, so we've just been discussing possible option scenarios with how to replace or address those two departures for 15-16. We have gotten feedback from the high school about Park, in particular the 9th grade students, whereas a few weeks ago when we began, in the 11th grade, if students were refusing to test, they really did for the most part, sit quietly, read a book. There wasn't a lot of distraction or disruption, or jitters, if you want to call them, on the part of students. But as we've progressed and hit with the 9th graders, they've been a little bit more distractible. And so that's another one of these items where we've got to sit down and see how it has gone. And the alternative really is to push all of those kids into probably the auditorium or another setting in the building, which creates a different set of issues and management, issues for us. So we tried to avoid that this first administration. I know other high schools where there, were 300 and 400 kids sitting in the auditorium, kind of just horsing around during Park. So we have to evaluate that and determine if that's what we need to do, because the kids that are in the classroom have become distracting to the students who are trying to take the test.
Any additional public commentary? Oh, Ms. Devlin, thank you. If you would mind signing in. You know the drill.
Jane Devlin, Chatham Township. I had read in the paper that Madison School District and Summit School District Board of Eds and administration were starting to review a 5-year plan for their school district. Does that 5-year plan calendar or schedule, is that by the State Board of Ed, or does each district determine when their 5-year plan would be? As well, I had read that both those school districts, unrelated to each other, had asked the public, their community or their parent communities, to join in with like a focus group with bringing forth some topics or suggestions that the community would like to see explored in the 5-year plan. So I wonder if someone could spend a few minutes tonight just kind of discussing what our calendar is, and was that ever considered being done here, having like some focus group or feedbacks? The articles, I think, were in the independent press, so I guess probably a number of people with the board may have seen the same articles I saw. The other part to that question is, I understand there was a climate survey that was going to be done at the high school, or hoped to be done at the high school, trending, seeing what's up with the kids, and I wanted maybe a little update on how that's going. Thank you.
Well, I'll start off and then pass it over to the board. It's up to the local Board of Education to determine what kind of plan it wants to incorporate in its operations, whether it's a 3-year, a 5-year, a 1-year, whatever, 10-year, whatever the case might be. I'm blanking on the second portion of your commentary.
So in the instance of the Summit and Madison communities, they decided they're going to have a 5-year plan. They're going to start to roll it out now, get a think tank going. And they were taking some feedback and ideas from the community as what to be in that 5-year plan. And I just wondered when, like, is that ever done here?
Yes, that's the part that I'll pass over to the board, but the other portion of your comments
About
were
the
about the
climate,
climate survey.
yes.
So we administered a climate survey last year that looked primarily, the main focus of it was bullying and harassment because we'd been living under the new law for 2 years. So we wanted to just see trends, what kids were reporting that they experience in school. Our individual school safety teams have worked, with that data to try to address any issues in the particular buildings. This year, what we're planning on doing is administering a survey that deals more with critical issues such as substance abuse, stress-related issues, those kinds of things. And then we'll take that data and I'll sit with the student assistance counselors and others and look at, number one, what the baselines are, because we really haven't done a comprehensive survey like that before, and then determine what kind of steps and what sort of plans to put in place to address the areas that we think are concerning to us.
I think it's terrific the survey's coming about. I realize that through my Municipal Alliance Committee involvement. Are the results of that survey, once it's completed, going to be available? Or the summary, not the raw data, but the summary?
Yes, they would be available.
Okay. Final thing, new topic. Could you just spend a minute to make sure I understand correctly with regard to the referendum? A number of parents sometimes say, we would like to see the funding go into more the academics than the brick and mortar. Did I not understand correctly at one of the meetings that this referendum is not really the fiscal forum to be able to, you're not allowed to use that referendum bond towards curriculum? Did I get that right? No.
Well-
You're saying yes and you're shaking no.
The referendum is essentially a vote from the public to enable the board to borrow money to fund
Yes.
to finance certain capital projects.
Yes.
If you were looking for, I guess you termed it academic. When you say academic, I think programmatic.
Yes.
And programmatic changes typically rely on staffing. So it's a permanent expense. You can't finance the hiring of staff members. So when you want to make a programmatic change and you can't incorporate it into your typical operating budget for one reason or another, then you would need to ask what we have done the past 2 years, which was a second question. So the second question is incorporated immediately into the next year's budget if it is approved. And then that's a permanent fixture in the budget. It becomes part of your operating budget.
Yes.
But you're not borrowing money to finance that, staffing needs.
Okay.
You are immediately increasing the tax levy in order to incorporate more
Okay.
staff.
That's how I did understand it. So again, some people, if they were in discussion with me, that are saying we should use this referendum money to finance curriculum or teachers are not quite clear on that.
We have to go with the second question, like we
Yeah.
did last year for
Okay.
the additional STEM
Okay,
staff.
because I do support the referendum and wanted to just make sure I understood thoroughly what I was supporting, and I do continue to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Devlin. Are there other comments? Any other public commentary? I would like to comment, I don't want to cut anybody off, so if there are still more folks to come up, okay, if not. There's another opportunity at the end for public commentary, but I did want to touch, Ms. Devlin, on your comment about planning. So, yes, we definitely do planning, and depending on the pillar, whether it's, curriculum or finance and facilities, I don't know if I know you were here, when we were starting to talk earlier about, what do we need to do from our facilities, I don't know if you remember Mr. Gilfilling saying, these are the things that have been on our 10-year plan, and as we chip away, so we have about a 10-year plan as it goes to finance or facilities, physical plant stuff. Often you'll hear Ms. Chase talk about curriculum, and each core subject matter gets looked at on intervals. So where you won't do it all at one time, and as it relates to public input, we actually have open finance meetings, we have open curriculum meetings, we obviously don't have open personnel meetings, and most of the policy items we just discussed here in open. As you know, we just had 3 public sessions specific to talk about the referendum, so we always open up public sessions when there's something very significant. We did it for the vote, you know, to solicit public solicitation about, information about, do we want to move the vote to November? We might have to do that again because every other town has moved it, so we might bring that up again and ask the public. We also, you know, when it's controversial items like lights or parking lots or things like that, we do hold many public sessions. So we may not, you know, call it once a year that we're going to go through it, but throughout the year, and we focus it on a particular topic, be it finance or facilities rather, or the curriculum. So throughout the year, we hold open sessions, specifically to talk about planning.
So that's rather positive and healthy because our process is ongoing.
It has to be,
instead of
it has
kind
to be
of
ongoing,
one size
iterative,
fits
because
all.
you don't know,
Good.
you don't know what your state aid is going to be, you don't know what your finances are going to be, you don't know what your budget is going to be, so it has to be a very iterative process. I mean, and not to disparage, every Board of Ed has to do what works for their group, but to put a 5-year plan out there without some of the interim information and how much funding you have, you know, it's nice words on a paper, but it can't be implemented without very specifics, you know, and if there's park testing, for example, that probably would have thrown a wrench in a ton of plans, because a lot of resources then had to be focused to that. So we do planning, and it's very iterative throughout the year, and it'll be very focused on a particular pillar versus this, you know, wide umbrella. So I hope that answers your question.
It does. And there is, I don't want to monopolize, but there's a number of opportunities really for the public and the parent community to get involved, like you said, by the various open meetings, or it's just out there if we just come and get
Sure.
informed. So
Sure.
again, I do want
And
to
again, if one bubbles up, then we'll have another special meeting, just like we did recently. If an issue bubbles up that requires additional attention, we call those meetings, like we have in the past. Thank you. We're going to move on to thank you, Ms. Devlin. We're going to move on to the regular agenda. There's another opportunity for public commentary. Moving on to personnel, Ms. Kenny?
Yes, I would like to move action items A1 to A13 for vote.
Sorry, just one moment, please. Does anybody have any items they'd like to discuss in more detail under personnel? No, seeing none. Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda items A1 through 13, Mr. Gilfield.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Ms. Cronin.
Yes.
Mr. Franz. Yes. Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes,
Agenda items passed 6-0.
thank you. Moving on to finance and facilities, Mr. Gilfield?
Yes, I'd like to move action items B1 through 9.
One second.
Thank you, Pam. Just a couple donations to reference one. A donation from the target companies to the Chatham Middle School in the amount of $142 to be used at the discretion of the principal. A Chatham Athletic Booster donation in the amount of $3,000 to support the parent-funded sailing club. And last but not least, I believe this isn't the first time I've seen this, a $1,000 donation from the Ruth Family Charitable Fund for the performing arts. And I believe this is Mr. Ruth. And Mr. Ruth, is it true that there is a rumor that they also get a used phenomenal sweater?
They get to wear it one time.
Okay, thank you.
And then return.
At my discretion, but I get to pick. Thank you very much, by the way.
Does anybody have any questions on the finance facility items? Kim? Mr. DeQuilla?
Agenda items B1 through B9, Mr. Gilfield.
Yes.
Ms. Clark.
Yes.
Ms. Cronin.
Yes.
Mr. Franz. Yes. Ms. Kenny.
Yes.
And Ms. Weber.
Yes.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
Very good. Thank you very much. Moving on to curriculum, Ms. Cronin?
I'd like to move action items C1 through C3.
I'll second.
Thank you.
I just had a question on the wording of number 1. Are we changing that? Are we working with our attorneys to change the wording? Okay, so that'll be forthcoming?
Yes.
Okay.
Barring any,
Sorry. Sorry. Any additional comments, questions? Sorry, thank you, Mr. Carl.
agenda items C1 to C3, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan? Yes. Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes, thank you.
Agenda items passed 6-0.
In Mr. Belding's absence, I would like to make a motion to move policy item D1.
I'll second.
Any questions on those two policies? No? Seeing none, Mr. DeQuilla, would you mind?
Agenda item D1, Mr. Gilfillan?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
Yes.
Ms. Cronin?
Yes.
Mr. Brennan? Yes. Ms. Kenny?
Yes.
And Mr. Weber? Ms. Weber?
Yep.
6-0.
He would agree also. Thank you. We have our board business right now. I don't know if anybody has anything they'd want to talk about. I just wanted to mention the most recent parent series was held, I think, last Wednesday night at the middle school, and it was a behavioral therapist that came in, and she covered a lot of topics, and it was a tremendous amount of information. And I was just wondering, Dr. LaSousa, is it possible to bring some of those speakers back again to focus on areas that maybe we need to explore a little bit deeper? I mean, she did a great job. She only had an hour and a half, but she covered a tremendous amount, and I thought I thought the parents were mostly involved in some of her cognitive behavioral therapy and some of the techniques to help students deal with things that are going on in their world. Is there an opportunity to bring some of those speakers back? Or
Yes. She was very, there was a good turnout. I got some very positive feedback about the presentation, and it complemented very nicely at least two of the others that we've had earlier in the year.
Okay, fantastic. So that was a great turnout. I just don't think parents had enough time to ask questions at the end because it ran a little long because she had so much great information, and it was a little difficult to unpack and formulate a question for her. But it was a great presentation. Thanks for bringing that into the district. Does anybody else have any additional board business? Oh, Ms. Clark?
I just wanted to loop back to Park, just kind of dovetail on something said. Obviously, it's a learning cycle for everyone involved, the students, the teachers, the proctors, and everyone. And I think, as we fortunately or unfortunately have another round to go, I think we need to really enforce with the kids who choose not to, that they do not have the right to take learning away from anyone else, and that it needs to be enforced and followed through. So if students cannot sit there and abide by the boundaries that are set, then action has to be taken. It's one thing to opt out, it's another thing to act out. So I think we need to enforce that. I think we need to inform them. I think it got a little bit kind of like a railroad effect, like everyone was jumping on the train. And I think it's something that could be controlled if addressed earlier and just put out there, that we're not going to accept that behavior. Thank you.
And it's primary at the high school level, correct?
I don't,
Right.
I didn't hear
Well, you
about
didn't see this at the middle school or?
No, in fact, when I was, like Dr. LaSousa said, originally, students were calm, they were quiet, they
Yeah,
were
I
reading.
think so.
So this seems to be towards the end of the administration of the high school.
Okay.
But certainly, we'll make a note of that.
At the end of Park, will we have a general idea of how much extra financial resources that took away to hire extra staff, to cover other classes?
Yes, we are tracking the hours and the expenses and everything else associated with Park over NJ Ask and HESPA.
Okay. And if we have to have a group pulled into the auditorium instead of sitting quietly, it's going to cost even more for supervision, whether it's a substitute or, pulling a resource away from another classroom.
Yes, the first 3 days we had on hand 3 substitutes in each building, in the middle school and the high school.
Oh, just a
Because we
float?
didn't know, we really couldn't predict how many students would just not take the test. We ended up not needing the substitutes that we were planning on having on hand, but it could well be that next go-around, we're going to need those substitutes, and that's an expense.
Okay. And can there be an alternate assignment for those that choose not to take it, or no, that is not viable?
That creates more,
Okay.
yeah.
Forget it. I'm not looking to create more work. More negative reinforcement. Does anybody else have any items for our board business? No? We have our second opportunity for public commentary. Again, if you wouldn't mind just, you can introduce again for those that just arrived.
Nabil Moulin, Chatham Township. Is there a chance to append the attachments to the agenda of the meetings? This is a point in case there's discussion about the physical exemption, and the only way we can look at that and make comments is to come here. So I think everything is electronic now, but I don't know if you could post, as you post the agenda for the meeting on Friday, to also put the attachments that I referred to. I don't know how, if they're available or not.
Unless there was an error on Friday, all of the attachments
Are
are
in.
posted with the agenda.
Okay.
When the agenda goes up on the Fridays before the board meetings, all attachments are posted.
Oh,
And should be on the website.
Okay.
Viewable through the website.
thank you.
Did you see it not there, or you didn't look for it?
I looked in the agenda, I didn't see it, but it could be my mistake.
Okay.
That's possible.
Well, I guess let us know, or we'll
Sure.
check it, but
Yeah, I
I
will.
didn't know if you saw it.
Related to that, I think a few meetings back, I suggested there is a sign-up list on the school website, so people can be informed with, meeting is coming and this is the agenda. So I don't know if any further thoughts have been put to that, or if there's a timeline to,
Yeah, it's the current, we're trying to rework the website for the district, so we're gonna try to incorporate into that. It's not feasible with the current software that's used to do that push out, so we're working with the current group to see if we can, when we redo the website, if it's possible to do a subscription,
Right,
for a
right,
user to
right.
subscribe.
right?
So we're looking into it, but it's not gonna happen with the current website, but hopefully, depending on what they come back to us with.
Is that like next school year or?
Hopefully next school year, yeah, September.
Okay, thank you.
Our next web meeting is the 30th, correct, Mike? Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. If there's no additional public commentary, we could close the meeting. Oh, one more. Mr. Heap, you just showed up. You won't have something to say. Nothing?
Got nothing to say.
Oh,
Thanks for asking.
Libby Hills and Rath Chatham Borough, I just had a couple of questions. This just came up, as far as redoing the website, I guess I wasn't aware of that. The way they do it in the borough, the administrator just emails out on Friday afternoon to anyone who's interested with the agenda for the upcoming Monday meeting. So that's a possibility until the website's done. Like, the Chatham Borough, Robin Klein, if you're interested in receiving the agenda for the Monday night Borough Council meeting, she will send out an email to you with the agenda attached on Friday afternoon for the upcoming Monday meeting.
are you saying she maintains an email address for 10,000 borough? I mean,
No, you request it. You email her and you request it.
What Mr. Nabil was saying is, we're going to try and look for somebody to subscribe and request it, but we're not going to have an administrator send out an email to folks.
Okay, well, that's what the Borough Council does.
What we do is, before the close of business on Friday, the agenda and all of the attachments are posted on the district website.
Right.
So if you'd like to see what's going on, after 4 p.m., or in most cases prior to 4 p.m., you go to the website and you can see the agenda.
Right, I'm just saying, I live in the borough, and so every Friday afternoon, for anyone who wants it, you ask her, you get on her list, and she sends it out.
Yeah,
Just
we're
another
just
option.
going to post it, but to to Bill's point, if, something changes, I think that's a great idea. We're going to look into that, but we're not going to send out emails because we post it every Friday.
Okay, just letting you know that's what the borough does.
Thank you.
Okay, second question is, as far as the referendum, when will we see what like a sample ballot will look like? Is it going to be listed as question 2? Is it going to be listed as referendum? How will it be listed? And what's the date for that and the wording for it? When's that finalized? Because all we have for wording is from March 9th meeting.
I know the sample ballot comes out, but we submit it. I'm just looking at Peter to see what the timeline is. We have to submit it, and they print it and send it back.
Is it listed as question 2 or how is it listed? I mean,
I'm not sure.
even from the 05 and 98 and 99 referendums, do you know, like,
I don't recall.
or
Do
can
you-
we
do
see
you
a
recall?
prior year's?
I don't recall.
It'll be titled, there should be no difference.
I have to work on it. It should be listed clearly, and budget 1.7% tax increase, Board of Ed candidates, referendum $24.8 million.
Okay, can I email you tomorrow and get a final word on whether it's
When I have the
listed?
final, I'll put it up on the website under the budget section. When I have I don't have the final question of what the final ballot is going to be done. That's being done by the the county clerk.
Okay, all right, we've tried to contact them. In a typical referendum, question one is your operating budget, right?
It should be, I haven't seen how the clerk is gonna design the budget. I would
Okay.
hope question one would either be the board candidate or the budget. And the last question should be the referendum. So there will be 3 questions proposed to each voter,
Okay, so.
whether you're in the borough or the township. And I don't know if the first one or the second one will be the candidates or the budget.
Okay,
The referendum should be the 3rd question.
Just so
As soon as the county clerk distributes the ballot information, we will put it on the website, and the county will mail it home to every resident of Chatham, just like they do a ballot for every election.
okay, and we don't know what that date is yet.
I have it, I don't have it off the top of my head. I know it's been published. But I don't
By the
have it.
county?
Yes.
Okay. And then just the last question was, I guess, in regard to what Ms. Devlin said, sort of about planning. The committee reports, the committees, do they don't meet publicly, right, or publish any agendas or minutes, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, because like
No, they're,
Pardon me?
oh, the committee? No. We don't publish those. You've asked this before, and the answer's been no, right?
I know, but I mean, a couple of things have come up, the student-teacher conferences and the pensions, as far as the state requirements, and I think these are things that the public should know about rather than maybe just a 2-minute comment. It goes to Ms. Devlin's comments about planning and
Right.
informing.
Yeah, and some of the things are just, dialogue and die and never come up. The things that move forward and come to fruition are talked about either at length or are become part of the agenda. So the things that never come to fruition will just never land on an agenda item. It will never become a resolution. So there's a lot of things that we talk about that are just crazy ideas and they just go to the wayside.
Okay,
Things that are going to stick and go forward and impact, anybody's interest end up in the agenda.
Is this board allowed to make those committee meetings public and have the agendas and minutes published, like legally? Are they allowed to do that, or?
I don't know. Certainly not the personnel items we wouldn't do.
Okay, so curriculum, finance, and policy and planning, are those allowed to be?
No, we go by a report. We've always gone by a reporting structure, so we don't have any plans currently to post those. Again, because we talk, 90% of it is talked about and 10% moves forward as an agenda item.
Right, but the public might have some input,
Okay.
like tonight it came up. I have input on the way the parent-teacher conferences are structured at 4th and 5th grade. I would have some input or questions about the New Jersey pension reforms. So just a comment that if we're allowed to, I think it might be helpful for planning and public input.
And obviously, you can comment on anything during the 2 public comment sessions of the board meetings.
Right, but it's not a lengthy discussion about, I'm not going to take up everybody's time here to get into the weeds
It
about.
could be lengthy if there's nobody in line.
Okay, so legally we can, but I guess we're not going to. Is that the
Correct.
answer?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
Jane
Sorry,
Devlin.
I'm sorry, Ms. Devlin.
Jane Devlin, Chatham Township. But again, so there's transparency and clarity, I should say, not transparency. That was wrong. There's already transparency. So there's clarity. Anyone can bring forth anything to the curriculum, or to the committees, I should say, if they want. Because I remember at PTO, the representative saying, we're going to a curriculum meeting, or we're going to a cafeteria meeting. We have those liaisons, and those liaisons could bring things to the various committees, who again meet, and as you said, anything that's an agenda item, or that's going to be going forth in any way to have any meat on its bones to affect the students or the district, is then brought forth through the board, and there's public commentary opportunities then. So, am I clear on that? So there is already a process and an effective process in place to be able to communicate with these various subcommittees of this board.
Yes, I believe
So,
there is. Oh,
okay.
sorry. Yes.
Okay.
No, but we have open curriculum meetings, we have open finance meetings. we have two-
Absolutely.
We have meetings, public meetings during the month, so.
There's an open meeting coming up in a couple of weeks about some technology and
opportunity.
STEM issues. So I just did want to clarify in my mind with regard to the previous commentators that there really is already a viable and effective process in place.
We believe so, and.
I do
efficient- More
too.
efficient. To talk about the 90% of the things we don't move forward with seems an inefficient use of everybody's time.
Yes, I would agree.
All right. Thank you, everybody. I'd like to close the Board of Ed meeting. All those in favor? Against? Oh, we do not have an executive session, correct? Excellent. Very good.